There's an intro song.
Have you heard the podcast, Chris, or no?
Yes, I know the intro hook, but
Okay,
I don't know.
we're ready.
Every guest has to sing. That's the deal.
We're recording now.
It's another Friday. This week I did it my way. I made lots of juice, and now I feel a boost. Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Friday's at Good Nature.
Ow, ow, ow! What's up, my juice lovers? Welcome to Good Nature Radio. This is your host, Charlie Wetlaufer, joined by the two top juice business consultants in the world, Chef Ari Sexner, author of The Juicing Companion, and Olivia Esquivel, founder of Southern Press Juicery, the award-winning juice bar. And today, we have a very special guest, founder of Ruby Jean's Juicery in Kansas City. Let me give you more of an intro here. We first met at JuiceCon back in 2018, where you made me take an Ussie on stage. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Do you guys know what an Ussie is?
No.
It's like, I was on stage at JuiceCon and I took a selfie. He's like, take an Ussie.
Oh,
So it's like when you
okay. I was
take
like,
a selfie.
wait a minute, I was there. I don't remember what I was thinking. It was gonna be like a shot or something. I'm like, what is this ingredient?
It's like a selfie with the whole audience in the background.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
I'll have to pull that picture up and edit it into the podcast here and throw it up. First met at JuiceCon. He was actually one of the first guests on my original podcast, The Cold Pressed Truth. He flew to Buffalo. I feel like it was the winter time in Buffalo, maybe 2018.
Yeah, it was
And,
very cold. Very
We went on a jog together in the winter in Buffalo. And since then, he's grown his juice bar to multiple locations, launched a wholesale line. It's now available in Whole Foods. He's gotten his juice into local public schools, doing so much for his local community. And I predict probably running for president in 2029. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Goode. Hey, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're excited you're here. How have you been since we last spoke?
Crazy all over the place. But I've been well. I think so. Play the date. So my son was just being born. My oldest was just being born. So I have a 5-year-old now and a 6-month-old. And so I'm all over the place, dad, business, community, but can't complain.
Yeah, I left father off the list here. We're both fathers now. We were not fathers when we met, and we both have 2 kids now. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So I was thinking, I know you have a really compelling story about the history of Ruby Jean's. Maybe you can just sort of give us the history of the name and why you started the company and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me. It's not missed on me that I'm in the presence of greatness. I just want to, I'm serious. I mean that. I'm in the presence of greatness, especially as it relates to the business that we're in. Charlie has extended, his support for Ruby Jean's to be where it is. He's really lent a hand and helped me along the way. And so I don't want to look past that. Ari, I've been able to call and get advice a couple of different times, and he's just open, tell me what you need. Olivia, I watch you from afar. I admire your poise and your grace as you navigate this, what can be a very, very challenging journey. So much love to y'all. So I'll start there. But Ruby Jean's, is based on my late grandmother. My grandma was, the support system for my single mother of 4 kids at that time. And, that time that my mom is away working 2, even 3 jobs at any given time in my upbringing, my grandmother, Ruby Jean, she was her extra backbone. And oftentimes we'd spend more time at grandma's house than at our own, but it was just right down the street. And I grew very, very fond of my grandmother. She was not a woman of many words. She was a very shy woman. If she saw all the places her face is now, represented for this brand, she probably would slap me in the back of my head, get her face down. But my grandmother came from small town in Oklahoma, transitioned to Kansas City for life in the big city, right? And looking for more opportunities, she started to grow a family tree. I'm very grateful to be one of the fruits of that tree. But when I was 14 years old, this grandmother that I just still to this day adore, she got very sick very, very fast. And, in my 14-year-old mind back then, it seemed like it was just so rapid. And I thought that my grandmother was, this is how it should go. She's older. But as I got older, I realized, oh, my grandma was just 61 years old. And the thing that I believe, the passing of my grandmother, one of the most transitional moments of my life is that my great grandmother had a massive heart attack in the very hospital that my grandmother would be taken off of life support in 2 days later. And so my family lost two of the most important people that it had ever existed for us in a matter of 48 hours. And so it's like life slowed down. I can still remember my mom, collapsing in grief and agony and, just pain. So fast forward a long time from then. In July, this will have been 25 years ago. But I kind of put a mental note in my head way back then to say, I want to tell people about my grandmothers. I want to talk about, specifically Ruby Jean, my grandma, in a way that people realize how amazing she was to us as a family. Because before she passed, our family was tight. We got together, we bonded, we had potlucks. When she died, it's like that connectivity, that tissue it was torn. And we're still trying to regain that. And subconsciously, I realized that, that my grandmother, my mother, and my great grandmother, they had this superpower. And that superpower was we were a family of severe lack. But as a kid, I never knew that. I never could feel that. I never saw them, hunker down or heard them complaining. I saw them upright. I saw them carry, going through life with such poise and such grace. So I knew I wanted to tell people, like, man, I've been raised by very powerful women, and I thought I would play for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I would get to build some massive statue in front of my mansion or something to show people how dope my grandma was. That didn't work out. I didn't make it to that level. Played college football, ended up in corporate America. My last corporate job I was a catastrophe adjuster. And so I traveled coast to coast, adjusting large scale claims. We would mobilize in the Carolinas. We drove up the coast to Jersey. And when Irene and Sandy made landfall, we hand out checks. So I did that for 5 years. During that time span, I had so many points, and so I would travel to different cities. When I was off, I was a single man. I was just free, right? And so I went to LA one weekend. Ironically, I'm going to LA tomorrow. It's weird, but I went to LA one weekend, and I get to LA, and juice is completely foreign to me at this point. I'm in my 20s. I live in Kansas City. This is a meat and potatoes barbecue. Like, there should be like a rib statue when you come in from the airport. There should be like a statue or a rack of ribs. That's how much we love barbecue and meat and potatoes in Kansas City. So juice it wasn't a thing. I get there and they're giving me all the pleasantries. Hey, welcome. How was your flight? Great. Dang, Chris, we forgot to tell you something. We're actually not eating today or tomorrow. What are y'all talking about? Y'all not eating. And so they go on to explain to me that they're doing a 7-day juice cleanse.
Hmm.
I thought they were nuts. I'm like, okay, these guys have lost it. They explained it to me. I ate that day. The next day, we're sitting in this tiny little North Hollywood apartment, and they're like, all right, we know you think we're crazy. And I'm like, yes, I do. But we want to show you this documentary. And so they set me down in front of Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And I don't have to tell y'all about it. I know y'all are familiar. Any viewers, if you are not familiar, become familiar.
By the way, that is the documentary that started the whole juicing industry back in like 2012 or something. I mean, that's what triggered the whole juice cleanse trend, where it just went, back in when we hit peak juice around like 2015.
I didn't even know that. Still, I just learned that today. But I watched this documentary with, eyes. I don't know juice, and so at first I'm annoyed, and then about midway through it, I start paying attention. And what really really dawned on me during that documentary is that you have this well-to-do guy that's like, man, they're not fixing me. This medicine is not fixing me. I got the best access. It's not fixing me. And you got to be a little bit crazy to do a 60-day juice cleanse. We all know that, right? But he did it. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. By the end of this documentary, this is it looks like a different human being. My grandma came to mind. My grandma lived 61 years and ultimately allowed soul food and a sedentary lifestyle to take her from us. And this guy was able to redirect the entire trajectory of his life in 60 days, albeit in a very, very difficult fashion. He did it. And from that moment forward, I was like, there's something to this. Came home to Kansas City, did a 10-day juice cleanse. By day 4, I was like, oh, this sucks. This is this is unnecessary for anybody to need to be this healthy if I have to feel this way. I push through it. I get through to day 10, and all of you all have done it. But this clarity, this soundness, this base level feeling of my being that I had never known. I played college football, worked out a bunch, but just ate whatever I wanted. And so it shot off sparks for me. I started going to juice bars across the country, coast to coast. And I'm doing all this market research, and I don't know that I'm doing it. I just have fallen in love with it. I'm picking my hotel based on where Whole Foods is or based on where a cool juice bar is. Where the rubber hit the road. Tell me if I'm talking too much, Charlie. You want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, this is great.
Where the rubber hit the road, I got tired of traveling. And you got to understand, coming from the east side of Kansas City, getting to a point where you graduate college, play college football, have an income over $100,000 a year is like arrival. It's like, oh, I made it. And so my first mind, from being exhausted with travel, I woke up in Schaumburg, Illinois, right outside of Chicago, and I could not remember what city I was in. I had been traveling so much, I had to jog Chicago. And that set off this light bulb moment for me that I realized that this isn't sustainable. And I first felt guilty because at this point I'm making more than all 3 of my older siblings combined, and am able to help my family and do this and that. I'm in a really, really good place from which I had come. My second mind was like, well, what are you passionate about? What do you love? And I'm tatted under here, right? All of my initial tattoos, my grandma's Porsche, Piggly Wiggly logos. We took her there every Saturday. Frying pan.
Ari loves Pig Wiggly, by the way.
She's like, it's not here anymore. I know they're in this house still somewhere, but we took my grandma there every Saturday. So all that's tatted on my arm. So I'm looking at my tattoos like, damn, I miss my grandma.
Yeah.
My grandma. I got this little like traveling ninja blender thingy. I've got all these pictures from juice bars at this point, menus. It's just what I love to do. I've started being judgmental to my family. Like, hey, mama, like, we shouldn't be eating fried chicken anymore. I'm sorry. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Getting on their nerves. But like, man, I like health and, juice, love juice, health, juice, grandma, health, juice. God is like, duh. Start a juice bar and honor your grandmother. And I shot up middle of the night like, oh my God. And I don't know if you've ever watched a movie and you watch it by yourself and something funny will happen. You'll like, and you'll start looking around, one somebody to join in, and you're laughing. You're like, oh, I'm alone.
Yeah.
I felt like that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. And I looked around. I'm like, okay, it's just me. And so from that moment forward, I made every mistake you can humanly make. I start telling the people around me what I wanted to do. My dad gave me bullet points on why I would fail. My mom, a devout Christian woman, she's like, baby, I love you, but let's pray, please. My friends laughed at me. They're like, you got a good job. Like, you're tripping.
Yeah.
So I finally said, you know what? I'm going to shut up. I'm going to shut up. God didn't put this on anybody's heart but mine. And I went forward. I quit my job way too fast, got another job, started looking for locations, couldn't find them. No. HE, double hockey sticks. No. I got discouraged. I kind of set back. And when I set back that time, that was when the name Ruby Jeans Juicery came to me. I was like, well, why do you want to do this? Grandma. Oh, I got the name. Then things started to just unfold. I found this little 700 square foot space that was the lobby of this boutique gym that was not well trafficked at all. I did a terrible handshake napkin deal, $1,000 a month. We're in business. I put everything I did not have into that space. Fast forward July 25th of 2015, we opened our very first location. One of the most critical points, I think, in my life, I'm looking out at my granddad, all of my friends, different teammates, ex-coworkers, and all these people are sitting there beaming with pride because now I have put my flag in the ground and I said, Ruby Jeans Juicery. That's what I'm going to do. And the city has supported it through and through the terrible, terrible, painstaking times and through the brightest times where there's 1,000 people at a grand opening. So I'll stop there. That's the backstory of Ruby Jeans Juicery. Hopefully that didn't eat up the whole time.
Man, what a great story, though.
Yeah, what a story.
And that is, so Chris, one of the things we've been doing for clients for the last couple of years is helping them branding. And that is like just the definition of a good brand, something that really means something to you and actually guides the decisions of the business, right? I mean, it's like the whole business is built around your personal passion and your love for your grandmother and how she passed away from not eating right and how you're going to change people's lives, make them healthier and help your community. I mean, it's just like such a powerful brand. So I got to give you props there. You have one of the best juice brands in the industry for sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. Also, I just got to say, I resonate a lot with, you're talking about how after your grandmother passed, it was, she was the one that kind of brought your family together.
Yes.
And that's my wife's mother passed 2 years ago from cancer. And it was the same thing. It was like her house in Toronto was where all the families would gather around while she was cooking Vietnamese food for everybody and bringing the family together. And if the siblings were fighting, she'd have them both over at the house and have them like make up. And, she was just like the kind of glue that held everything together. So that just really resonated with me as well. It's a big transition when that person and the family's gone,
It is like our family, and I still can remember it, I can still hear the voices running around the house and like us playing in and out the door. Hey, close that door. And it's just never been like that. It's never been that way since. So,
yeah. Man, powerful story.
Yeah, I have a similar story, but on the Hispanic side, like same grandmother, same situation. And my career has always been focused before Southern Press Juicery on helping the Hispanic and African American communities sort of come out of their diet and learn a new way of life. And for Hispanics, it's a lot different because traditionally in the US, it's when they're sort of coming from their country, they're coming from a good place and a really good eating habit. And then they're coming here, and because of lack of funding, they're eating, all of a sudden with, McDonald's dollar menus and all of these things. And then all of a sudden, of course, just like African Americans, the glucose is high. And then, part of the struggle, I'm sure that you'll talk about also, is within the African American community and Hispanic community, is like breaking down the barriers of, we got sugar, like I got sugar, I got a touch of sugar, I don't know if I can have that, right? And then really sort of explaining the concept to them. Like for me too, starting in Greenville, South Carolina, which is not where I'm from, but it's where Southern Press Juicery was. It was a meat and three kind of situation, Bible Belt. Like that's, we're not trying to be Atlanta. We're not trying to be trendy, but it's just uphill battle from the start. And we opened in 2015 also. And it's this uphill battle of like green juice. We don't want to be that. Come on, you're from a big city. Like that's not going to fly here. But just watching the community wrap their arms around that and watching all walks of life, white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, rich, poor, come in and find something and build a menu that somebody can find around. But it's not without lack of educating them on why it's important, and I mean, just like that generational bondage of like just bad habits and comfort food and this is normal to be this size, and this is normal to have diabetes and high blood pressure at 40, 50 and be on meds, and just talking to them like, can you do one thing a day? Can we switch this for that? Because it's hard to come in and make a difference in communities like that are so etched in history and tradition, and it is what they eat on Sundays when they get together. But I'm sure you had to deal with that with recipes too. Like the recipes I have now are very different than the recipes I have when I first started, the juice bar, like beginner recipes versus now, like, adding some really deep greens and some more detoxes in there. And even just the verbiage. Like for me, I know with the African American community, every time I say cleanse, I think it's a colon cleanse because that's what they're used to. And I'm like, no, not a colon cleanse, baby. Like, I mean, but it is, you have to have people in the juice bar that recognize those differences culturally and can break it down for them so that it's something that they can actually hear and actually want to incorporate rather than fight back. I'm sure you probably experience the same.
Oh yeah, it's been an uphill battle. Our location at 30th and what's known as Troost today is the first ever 100% health focused business on the east side of Kansas City in the history of Kansas City, Missouri. Right? In the history, it's never.
That's crazy.
So what we do there it's an anomaly. It's like what is that? People still to this day. We've been at this location for 7 years come November, and still to this day, because they see a Black woman's face on the front of the business, because it's at 30th and Troost, they'll come in just instantly assuming, oh, there's soul food in here.
Right.
I know it. And the crazy thing is, Olivia, they're right. Yeah. Except for the definition of soul food is different. What we're really trying to alter. We're trying to provide something that actually does something for your soul, that actually gives you something. But it takes time and it takes commitment. It's one of the reasons that I really look to children, because I had an uncle. He eats probably a bag of M&Ms a day, and he's like, I'm like, oh, just come by. Like, I'll get something on. He's like, nephew, that healthy stuff will kill you. Literally. Yeah. Literally.
Yeah. That healthy stuff will kill you.
Yeah. It's frustrating when when you know too much, it can be frustrating for sure.
And as people get older, their regimen, their routine, their habits, they're really, really set, oftentimes. Sad. So I spend a lot of my energy educating children. Yeah. Because they're more pliable, their ears are open wider. They're like, oh, it don't taste so bad. If you can get past the color of it, and taste it, like it's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
They're the best taste testers because they always tell the truth,
For sure.
What were some like I mean, I always talk about kind of places that are unfamiliar with juice bars. There's kind of like some tips and tricks that I always kind of recommend, like vibrant color juices, unnatural color juices are like huge sellers in areas where like they're not familiar with juice bars, adding like blue spirulina or like purple cabbage or something. That always works great. Or having juice blends that kind of resemble another drink that they might have, like a lemonade or something like that. Do you have what were your process when you were creating the menu? I mean, were there some challenges on certain items or any kind of tips and tricks you might have?
Simplicity.
Yeah.
Simplicity has really been our friend. We don't really venture too far into any complexities whatsoever from a menu perspective. You know, we have on the food side, we have a soul food bowl because it triggers what we know. But then when you get to it, it's like this brine clean chicken with kale braised like grandma used to cook greens and mashed sweet potatoes and sweet corn. So creating
Ooh,
some
that sounds good.
familiar options, like we had a black eyed pea burger, you know, because it's like bringing in some of those cultural foods that have benefits, but changed in a way it's prepared. So that's been some of them, but I think we just did that. Like I did that subconsciously, you know, because it's what I am, is what I know, and I know it's what communicates, you know, to our audience the most. And our audience at 30th and Troost, it's everybody. And it's if I died today and somebody said, "Well, what was the thing that he really did?" That is the thing that I would hang my hat on, because we've been able to bring people together, no matter what they look like, no matter how much money they got, any of those differences around this thing in such an unlikely place. It's our best location. You know, unfortunately I'm closing a location that's in a very affluent neighborhood right now, very affluent, and it makes my brain rattle. Like, wow. You know, who would have thought that this location in this food desert in what's an opportunity zone, and it's never ever, and it's still not any other, just us, works way better than this place in one of the top 10 richest counties in America.
Yeah.
Probably if you had a bunch of guys like studying the area and crunching numbers, they'd tell you not to open there, right? They'd be like, that would be a mistake.
It's same thing happened to me. I mean, my restaurateur partner, when I opened, you know, fine dining restaurateur, several restaurants, very successful in the Southeast. He was like, "Look, Olivia, let's face it. You know, you put me in the fanciest building, like lead building, whatever." He's like, "Let's face it. It's going to be nothing but moms in yoga pants and Lululemon pants." And I was like, you just watch. It won't be. But of course it was like, you know, me versus him. And I will tell you that my regular that comes, my audience that comes 7 days a week, if I had a profile of my regulars, right? And you've got different regulars, right? You've got like your 3 times a week, your 5 times, your once a month, whatever. My 7 times a week regulars, there's probably 20 to 25 of them, all men over 40. Not one of them Lulu wearing women. And I think it's just knowing your audience and knowing how to speak to them, and not knowing that not every single audience is the same. Like you said, like what speaks to you is, you know, black-eyed pea. That sounds familiar. That sounds good. It's soul giving in a different way than what you're used to. But it's also like you can do that from an ingredient standpoint or from a language standpoint for the brand. Like I know when a mom walks in with a baby and I can tell that she's nursing, I know exactly what I'm going to recommend to her. I know exactly what she feels. She feels depleted. She wants to increase her milk supply. Like I know exactly what to say to that woman. Same thing. When I have an African-American come in, I know watermelon, beets. I know the things, high blood pressure. I know the things that they want. Same thing when a Hispanic comes in. I'm talking about my guava cookies, like, and not to profile, but to really like, I think, talk about the things that they feel comfortable with and give them an entry point into the industry. Like I cannot come at a Hispanic and be like, I put black charcoal, activated charcoal in your juice. They're going to be like, what is this voodoo? You know, like, but really just finding that entry point, whatever it is, whether it's a buzzword that's a detox or a cleanse or, you know, beets, something that they feel familiar. And I think you did that subconsciously, but it was so brilliant that you did that. And not tailoring it so much towards one community, because it's really, I mean, we all need to be eating healthier. And it's something that, you know, if you've got good food and good service and a good brand, everybody will feel welcome in there.
That is, that's why, you know, that's why her face is central, because she didn't know about this stuff. It's a contradiction. The idea is that we all have interacted with grandmothers. Most people have some love for a grandmother's energy, a grandmother's hug, a grandmother's warmth. And so it's wanting that to be the entry point, that this is for you, that this is for everybody, and really creating new consumers through that.
I know you mentioned you're on Truth's Road. I think I was following you. Do you want to tell that story?
So Troost Avenue, it has way longer than I've been alive been the red line of Kansas City. It's been the line that, divided the haves and have-nots through restrictive covenants and so on and so forth. And the good fortune that I have is that Ruby Jeans, has really transcended the actual product of food or a juice. It's been able to become this platform that inserts itself into new conversations that creates more of a healthier ecosystem as opposed to just healthier bodies. And one of those efforts has been to rename. So I was fortunate enough to rename J.C. Nichols. Have to look him up. He is one of the early architects of segregation in America. Really, really prolific developer, but an evil man, and so we renamed his street. Big fountain named after him. Got that done during my time on the Parks and Rec board. Got to honor Dr. King here in Kansas City during my time on the Parks and Rec board. But now we're working on renaming Troost Avenue. Well-known slave owner, but even beyond him being a slave owner of that era, this street has always been the street that's divided us. Years ago, probably about 4 years ago, the nightly news came in and they wanted to talk to me. And I'm thinking, wow, they want to come in here and they want to talk about Ruby Jeans. This is great. But what they wanted to talk about was the darkness of this street, the division of this street, the history of this street. And that's a narrative that's long plagued our city. Like, people know, hey, you get to Troost, you might want to stop there. Don't go beyond.
Turn around. Yeah.
But that's not the actuality of what the street is. There's philanthropic efforts, prayer chains, what we do, on shelters, on and on and on. Beautiful businesses, beautiful restaurants. But we've allowed this narrative to just perpetually maintain itself. And so I'm crazy enough to say, I think it's time to stop that. And so for the last 2 years, I've been petitioning all of our community to say enough is enough. And we've gotten over 20,000 signatures from this community of people that agree and say enough is enough. And so we've gotten to the very, very end point. And I won't make this too political, but we've gotten to where our mayor is thwarting that effort as we speak. And so we're still in the midst of working to change it. We're getting very close, but we're not there yet.
And you're changing the name to Truth?
Truth. Yep. The entire movement has been truth over truth. This universal idea that, I think nowadays politics will tell us that there are two truths or multiple truths, but like this white behind this wall behind me is orange. Yeah. It's an orange wall. There's nobody that can come up to me and say, no, that's a blue wall. There's only one true truth, right? And so this idea of truth is something that it doesn't honor anybody. It honors what we all have to face in order to move anywhere.
So good, Chris. Yeah. Keep going.
See why I said he's running for president in 2029.
I know. So good. It's so good.
How's everybody doing on time? Is everyone okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So let's shift gears. Let's talk about going from initial opening Ruby Jeans Juicery to expansion. I'd like to touch on getting into Whole Foods, getting into schools, maybe opening locations, closing locations, just anything. Maybe you can just kind of walk us through that.
Where do you want me to start?
I don't know. What came first?
I'm not sure. And so back in 2020, with us having a focus on children, so I teach smoothie making classes constantly. I talk to children. We do samplings at schools, the whole nine. But I wanted to take it a step further and actually get the product into their hands at no cost to them. So after another 2-year-long effort, I was able to get the school district, Kansas City Public School District, to partner with me to distribute 10,000 bottles of cold pressed juice, 8-ounce bottles, into poor kids' hands at no cost to them. The kids loved it. They gave great feedback. It was awesome. And then it didn't get funded for a second year. And so it's something that is, it's something that I'm actively charting towards. I think that as we seek to grow, I don't want to just grow and just looking at spreadsheets and, financial numbers and all of this. I want to grow in a way that tangibly keeps us connected to why we do it. And I think that children are really, really a grand opportunity, because you got kids that are in these impoverished school districts, and they get to school and they're likely facing food insecurity. And what you most commonly hear are we got a salad program.
Mm-hmm.
And you got kids that are eating hot chips and Takis and slushies from 7-Eleven, if they're eating hot pickles and yada, 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 hamburger helper. And then they get to school and the norm is like milk in a cardboard box, is pizza that came in a bag, and so on and so forth. And then the alternative in the places that really are trying to get it right is this big salad bar. And the kids are looking at it like, what is that? Like, what want me to do with all that grass over there? Like, I'm not going to do anything with that. Mm-hmm. But I see juice as a equalizer, right? Because what you were saying, Ari, these bright colors, that'll definitely get a kid's attention. And then, wait a minute, that tastes good. And so you're getting this concentrated nutrients into this kid's body. But it's always boils down to dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And so
I was very impressed that you were even able to get any funding for that.
Yes.
Based on like the agreements the schools have with the food distributors and everything. So I'd be curious to know, like, how did you approach the schools to even get them interested in that?
So as you know, I do a lot of civic work in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And so the superintendent, the school board is actually on Troost as well. And like, we can see their building from our building. And so a lot of them come into the school, but I've created relationships with the superintendent, their team, on down, teachers. And so I had access to the conversation, but it took me 2 years to get them to say, yes, we'll try this even on a trial basis. And so I think it's a kind of an uncanny scenario where I'm just on a first name basis with the decision makers of the school district.
Cool. Yeah. So anyone listening, network, meet the school board.
Comes down to connections.
Yeah,
it does. I mean, it does, to get to real conversations, because normally it's like, big food distributor has this contract. There's no way you can penetrate that bubble. Don't even try. I mean, try. But just know it's going to be hard and it's going to be costly. But relationships kind of start to supersede some of that red tape. Not all of it, but some of it.
So that got funding for 1 year and then didn't get funding again. And,
Correct.
It's like, that's happened to me so many times just in my career too, where you think like you finally get this big one, right? You caught the big fish and you're like, damn, I got it. And then you hit your head on the glass ceiling again. And it can be so frustrating. And the same was true for me for opening stores, and then close the store, right? And then you're going to go for Whole Foods, going to go HEP. No, I don't feel like, that was too much work. And so it's like, you have to have a certain personality to be able to get knocked down so many times and still stand up, And maybe not everybody gets knocked down because maybe they don't go after the big fish like, you and I tend to do because we're just those big kind of personalities. But it can be exhausting. I mean, can it not, to just be like, I don't know, you got to hit it on the right day because half the time you're exhausted, half the time it just pushes you forward. But it's not always what it turns out to be. And you just got to keep going. I mean, I'm curious between like the school system, new stores, all the ups, I'm curious to know about the soccer stadium, the Whole Foods, like which one for you has been the most sustainable? Not that I'm discouraging anybody from going after all those fish, but which one of those has been like, all right, that was worth it. That was, that moved the needle in terms of a difference maker for the company.
So Whole Foods, first to talk about just sticking with it. There's no magic recipe for that. Yeah. I talk about this from time to time, but in order to move right from point A to point B, it takes energy.
Yep.
And in order to have energy, it takes a source.
Yep.
right? So I'm always trying to edify the source, the source that produced the energy to create the movement. Like
Right.
that source is the thing that, I'm tired right now.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm tired
Yeah.
right now.
Right.
My shoulders are heavy right now,
Yeah.
but my source is intact. My
Right.
faith is intact. My hope is intact. I'm still praying. I'm still hoping. I'm still
Yeah.
dreaming. I'm still loving on my family as if I don't have these heavy
Mm-hmm.
shoulders. So I always encourage people to really just keep looking at the source. Like
Yeah.
what's going into your source, that quiet time, whatever it is for you. Faith is a multitude of things
Right.
for many people.
Right.
Right. But I think that thing that precedes the actual movement, that's what's most important. That's what's most
I
important.
think it's focusing on the good feeling thing. That's what I say. Like focus on the good feeling thing. Like something can move me during the day that annoys me and irritates me, and maybe rightfully so, but I can't stay there in that place. Like I just look for the next good feeling thing. And then that's what kind of pushes my momentum forward in the direction. Like it's all, call it gut, call it faith, call it source, whatever. It's just, man, that didn't feel good. That conversation did not feel good. This conversation with this new opportunity felt good. And you just go in that direction until it doesn't feel good anymore, and you're like, is this even worth it anymore? Like, is this worth it for my staff? Is this worth it for the product? Is this, no, like,
Right.
I'm just hitting my head. I'm hitting my head. Let me shift gears and maybe look in this opportunity, because there's always going to be another opportunity that's maybe just dressed up in a different way.
If we create it,
Yeah. Yeah. If you look for it.
If we allow that opportunity to be
absolutely.
present. That's that on that portion. You asked about what relationship has been most sustainable.
Yeah, like the Amazon, the news stores. Which of those big fish has really been like, I would say, a difference maker for the store, for the brand, for the company?
There's been a number of things. Two that come to mind. Our relationship with Whole Foods has been very fruitful. Whole Foods approached me in 2018, and they wanted me to have a cold pressed juice product ready to be, distributed throughout the market.
Yeah,
I didn't have it. I didn't even know how to do it. I started calling. That's when I was calling Ari and Charlie, like, "Hey,
we were probably on the opposite lines of Ari's phones, like doing that."
Like, I don't know what this is. Like, what a HACCP? Who is that?
Yeah.
So Whole Foods, though, they've been patient. They've allowed me the time, the grace. Because I didn't have that product available, we ended up opening a physical location in their store, which became the first Black-owned brick-and-mortar business in a Whole Foods in their history. And so we still have that store. It's still doing really well for us. But they've now maintained that relationship and even a collaboration on launching our juice to market. We just launched our cold pressed juice to market 7-8 months ago, and right now we're in the Rocky Mountain region. So we launched into one full region at our starting point, and that's pretty uncanny. Some people, some brands, some unicorn brands go national,
go all over, right?
Right. That's just not the norm. Normally, it's like a hyper local scenario. But Whole Foods has been one of those relationships, and this is a unique one, but bumping my head on so many leases and so many different real estate owner relationships and this and that and the third, and going through COVID and experiencing all this, it really made me understand that real estate ownership had to be a part of our model. And so we were able to acquire the real estate at the 30th and Troost location. And that in and of itself, it created this more solid foundation, right? There's nobody that can tell us anything about that. If it's not something we're breaking from a local municipality code or anything,
right,
we don't even want to hear it. And so that the ownership piece has really, really helped us to be more stable because we're not looking over our shoulders, and then we can even extend opportunities to other small businesses and start to help them start to grow the channel. So those are the two that I'll say. Been so many more, but those are the two that I would point to right now.
Yeah, that's like the concept of McDonald's, right? Like in that Founder documentary, if you've seen that, you really realize they're making money on the land. Like, sure, they make money on burgers, but not really. Like, really where they make money, what really turned around for that company was when they started buying land and then leasing that out to franchisees. And so you're so smart, Chris. so awesome.
I mean, but it's a thing. I'm not so smart. I received it, but I'm
Well, you
not.
keep going. You just keep going until you find something that works. That's
I
smart, though.
do, and
Yeah.
the uniqueness about that is, when I first walked into that building, I was around 2 or 3 years old, and I walked into that building with my mom, my grandmother Ruby Jean. And it was a day-old bread store, and I went to daycare across the street as a low-income kid, and so that's a faith thing,
Yeah.
I got to put the work in to get to that point, sure, but there has to be something overarching that's beyond that from a source perspective that even creates that as an opportunity. Because I could have moved across the country, but to be able to be at home and rectify long-standing issues from home is something that I couldn't be more grateful for.
Yeah, it's next level.
Are you able to talk about it all more about the relationship with Whole Foods? Like, did they partner with you in the manufacturing as well, or did you have to get it manufactured outside?
No, so I have my own manufacturing partnership. So I'll kind of leave it light on the true relationship underlying.
Yeah.
But they've been instrumental, in us being able to because if I could sell to coffee shops in Kansas City our cold pressed juice, but you really need a foundation from a volume perspective. And so Whole Foods being at the table with an entire region, now you actually have a manufacturing conversation, because everything else on top of that, we certainly have to keep building on top of it. But it gave us, our footing. It gave us the ability to say, okay, we can present this type of a volume to get to any reasonable margin with us not owning the manufacturing facility ourselves.
Yeah.
So how many SKUs do you have in Whole Foods? How many flavors?
We actually have 7.
Wow, that's a lot.
Nice.
It is a lot. And I wanted to start with 4, but you kind of, you give and you take.
Yeah.
You give and you take. And so we're still giving and taking. I do see us at some point narrowing that a bit. But we're just gathering data right now, because
see what's selling.
One of the SKUs that I would have kept out has been top 3.
All right, what is that? So, what are the ingredients?
So it's a veg out. It's a beet, cucumber, carrot, ginger, celery, kale.
Yeah.
That's it. Lemon.
That's serious, yeah.
Yeah. So I would have,
right.
But it's been.
But again, you're talking about a Whole Foods market, which is a different market than a more concentrated market than than the variety that walks in and out of our stores every day. It's it's a very targeted market of health freaks that are looking maybe not so much for beginner, but looking for more. Okay, I'm not going to produce this. I'll do the easy stuff at home. Give me something hard that I'm not going to do at home. So interesting, yeah.
So we had an episode of the podcast recently talking about catering, and I know that's something you've done a bit of. For our audience, they're all juice bar owners, juice business owners. Can you talk about what your catering program looks like?
So our Troost location is actually Ruby Jean's Kitchen and Juicery, whereas our Whole Foods location is Ruby Jean's Juicery. Other locations are Ruby Jean's Juicery, with just a focus on our beverages and some, lower scale snacks like acai bowls and things like that. But we cater to the Kansas City Royals. Every single home game, we put together very simple pans of very clean things. Like, you got a pan of quinoa, you got a pan of chicken, and so we break it down like that. They'll get 50 acai bowls, 100 acai bowls, all at one time, a ton of protein rounds, but things that are very specific to their needs to fuel their players. So it's very basic. But then we may have a corporate lunch of 400 lunch boxes, still very clean, very basic offerings. But they also often order our juice in bulk. It might be like a 400 bottle order, a 500 bottle order. So pretty much like that, but we customize it. We do big trays of different things. We've got a cauliflower wrap, or we do a sweet potato brownie platter with fruit mixed in it, things like that.
One of the things we were talking about with catering was whether you should be charging extra because it's extra work, or give them a discount because they're buying in bulk. Like, what's your pricing model for that?
Yeah. So the weird thing about being a small business is all of the donation requests. and discount requests. And so for us, so I started Ruby Jeans Foundation, and we're still working on the nuts and bolts of that, right? But we have Ruby Jeans Foundation, and in that umbrella, we adopted the first ever bus stop in the history of Kansas City, right? And now several have been adopted after. I clean it every single weekend. We are working to rectify the name of Troost. I raised $1.3 million to create the Paseo Stairs, a free health and wellness site, free to the community. I teach smoothie making classes. We do health workshops. And there's probably 3 more different things under that Ruby Jeans Foundation umbrella, right? And if we raise money from an entity, we'll oftentimes just give juice away, as we have the opportunity to. And so I try not to discount or give away anything under the umbrella of Ruby Jeans Juicery, the business, because it's not reasonable for us to. I don't know, I may be going further into this than your question, Charlie. But
No, that's great.
No, that's perfect. That's
perfect.
Especially because the audience that it's a B2B audience, right?
Yep.
And oftentimes that second B is a big B, and it's not. So no, we charge market rate for what it should be. We have a very healthy, a very clean offering. We display it really nicely. And then when we look at it as a way that if an office, a conference comes to town, right, and they want all of this food and there's our brand on it, it's going to add value to that conference, right? If our brand is doing the job that it needs to do, I look at that as a value add to the conference, to the office, because people are going to walk away like, oh man, we didn't just get, I don't want to name any other businesses, but insert corporate chain number 1. We didn't just get this, what we always get. It's more of an exciting point. It's a value add. And so, no, we don't discount or do any of that. Unless there's some kind of, marketing trade-off or something. But I try really, really hard not to do that. As much as my heart wants to, it's just not sustainable.
That really lines up with kind of what we agree with too,
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when people have their juice bars and they see that big contract, they're all excited and try to get that locked in for repeat customers, and it's not sustainable, and a lot of times people aren't looking for a discount. They just want the product, and just have you provide that number. So
Chris, do you have somebody in sales that's like calling for those conferences, or are you just finding that they're falling in your lap because of longevity and reputation?
By the grace of God, Olivia, we've been able to carve a niche in this market where we have name recognition. People think juice, health, acai, protein. It kind of points back to us. We definitely have competitors, right? It's not just us here.
Sure.
But most of it's organic. Big 12 basketball was in town, and the actual conference, the actual Big 12 organization, they reached out. We did a small thing for them. Baylor's women basketball, and for the same thing, they reached out. But it's because, if they go to search, we're number 1, or if they ask somebody, most times somebody's going to say us. And so we don't market for it. I don't have a salesperson that focuses on catering. We kind of let it do what it's going to do. And even at the scale that we're at, we can't really sustain going out and selling, 10 more caterings a week. We wouldn't have the capacity.
Right.
All right, I just have one more topic here, and then we can wrap it up after that. So I know that you've gone through opening and then closing locations in the past. Maybe we can talk about just, going through that, how that was sort of mentally on you and how you dealt with that. I know Olivia has experience in that too, so maybe we can just talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm going through it as we speak. I tried a location in an area called Leawood, Kansas, outdoor shopping mall, yoga studio right next door, the neighbor. And, we did everything to create inroads to the neighborhood, collaborations, flyers, discount, everything you could think of. And it just never took. And I think the feeling that I feel today is a little less hampered than the feeling I felt, 4 years ago when we closed the location, because now I see it as almost inevitable. I don't think that there's any absolute, if you have an idea or plan to grow, there is no absolute pathway towards that growth. There has to be a retracing and a lateral movement and then advancement. It's not going to always just be advancement, advancement, advancement. And so I'll be honest, I feel sick to my stomach. I got to send out a $50,000 check. And it's just a straight up just loss. And it sucks.
It sucks so bad.
Yes, brutal.
It's the worst.
It's like, but we're not dead.
Yeah.
We still have opportunity.
Right.
We've got all this upside. And so I've started to look at it like, okay, in this column, I've got a loss, a loss, and a loss. And then in this column,
right,
I got a win, another win, another win, another win. And you start to look at your columns and think like, my gratitude is the whole thing. Because I know that I don't even get this column without having this short column. And so I sometimes I speak very, in a very ethereal sense, because my faith is what drives me, Charlie. I've put smart people around me, to be our COO, to be our wholesale director, to be our kitchen manager, to be my chief of staff. I'm my heart. I don't want to do this if it's not getting us closer to making people healthier and happier and getting to hug their loved ones longer. And so, long-winded way to say it sucks, but I'm even grateful for the part that sucks.
Chris, let me ask you, like from an operational standpoint, when you decide that that a location or an effort is no longer working, what is the marker for you? Is it a time period? Is it, it's paying for itself, but I just don't see it moving the needle? Is it's been showing a loss for X amount of time? Like, what is the one that you're finally like, that's it, I'm out?
I don't think that I have a very specific marker.
Yeah.
If I don't see if I've turned every single stone,
yeah,
I know that we as a brand have done all of the marketing we could do, all of the collaborating that we can do, we've done everything that we can do, that we know that we even know to do for any other location that we have, and it's still not showing.
Yeah.
And you're turning a loss, and it's going month after month, and then you got this business starting to support it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I try not to let it go too long. At that point, it's how do we deal with the ownership group?
Yeah. How do we get out?
Location? How do we get out?
Yeah. Just get me out as quick as I can. Yeah. Because I find that too. Like, I think there's a certain point in everybody's journey when they look at expansion that you think more is more is more. And sometimes it is, but you got to really look at what, for instance, if you're looking at multiple locations, like what is it doing to your golden egg, right? Whatever that is, like the one that is going to be on Troost Street, like what is, because the more that I open locations sometimes when they get a little bit too far out of reach, or they need a little more hand holding from Olivia, and they don't just want, a chief operator in there. They want to see Chris Goode in there. Like that's what they came for, because that's what you've built in there. And I see like my main ship starting to kind of go down a little bit. I'm like, oh no, no, I got to keep this strong because I'm nothing without my main ship. And so as much as it hurts sometimes to close some of those smaller operations, the moment I do, all of a sudden I just see like my main store just start to really thrive again, because I'm putting all of my effort back in there, right? Like I've taken all my people out of there, and I'm like trying to, save all these sinking ships, when really there was so much more I could have squeezed out of that main location. And maybe it's just part of getting older and getting tired and not, needing more isn't always more, but just really enjoying the things that are working well, and how can I continue to improve those efforts? How can I continue to work on my food costs? How can I continue to hire more good people that need a job, that this is, benefiting their daily lives? I know how bad that sucks, but at the end of the day, you just focus on the things that are working well, and know that you're safe there.
Yeah, but not, when you talk about something working well, the thing that I'm most grateful for today in Ruby Jeans Juicery as a business is my team.
Yeah.
And when you start to see the stress of trying to hold on to a sinking ship impact them, to me, that was the biggest marker to say, okay, it's time. As much as it hurts me, it's hurting them worse day in and day out. And that's going to have a more of a sustained impact on our business, because you start to, people can start to question your decision making, or like the trust can start to falter a little bit when you're allowing them to be subdued to so much undue pressure, and strain, when it's not really benefiting any of us. We're just holding on for our ego's sake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because you wanted it to work so bad, and you're not ready to give up.
Admit the loss. Yeah.
Wall, it's like, dang. But
you're like, where are all the yoga moms and their Lululemon when I need them?
They're just speaking out with their mats, like just flying to the car. I'm like, hey.
That's right. Going to pick up. Yep.
Man, well, this has been great, Chris. Every time we talk, I learn so much. It's good to catch up again. How can people follow you, contact you, etc.?
I am on Instagram as Genuine Juice Guy. Ruby Jeans is on Instagram as Ruby Jeans Juicery. Those are probably the two easy ways to stay in touch with what we're building.
It's been great.
All right.
Congratulations, Chris.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Time, Chris.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, honey. Ciao.
See you guys.
It's another Friday. This week I did it my way. I made lots of juice, and now I feel a boost. Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Good Nature.